played our first show, we had hair to here. The night we played the first show, it was down to here. I'm like, wow, that hair grows fast. But he looked cool. I let it go. Cool, fine. And then finally, when he, we broke it up and we went to Japan with Motorhead. We toured for 1 week. Then we were supposed to come back and go into the studio and record something. They wanted us to record an album. And we had enough tunes and we had enough. So, anyways, enough of that. So, the third night, Motley Crue's there. So they're playing. And I'm like, dude, hey, to Nick, it's been a long time. And my friend that was with us that, we used to hang out. And he's like, hey, I remember you two. And he's like, yeah, Mike and George. Mike, or Bone. He called everybody Bone. Like, hey, Bone, hey, what's up, Bone, Bone. So sometimes he call me Bone, sometimes he call me Mike. And then George is George. So he's like, hey, yeah, I haven't seen you guys in a long time. He's like, yeah, it's been a while. And we're like, wow, so you guys are friggin' rehearsing? Yeah, we're going to rehearse before we go over to Europe. They think we're not, quite up to it because some of the people in the band have a drug problem. This is Mick talking. We're like, oh, well, I go, luckily we don't have that. I mean, we do, party, but we're not that bad. And then the next night, people had been, bringing in, I don't remember what album was out for WASP in 1987, but the bass player, the new guy, Johnny Rod, he was in the band, Chris Holmes, Blackie, and the drummer that just died, I think. Riley, yes. So they were in the middle, or in the little room, because we were in the middle-sized room. So we're like, dude, Chris Holmes, woo! So, I told my friend Gary, go out and get like a couple of cases, because my friend Gary knew Chris. So we got a couple cases, and we start drinking, but we got to hide it, because, Blackie didn't want anybody drinking and getting drunk. But Blackie was going into the bathroom and doing lines. And I told Chris, I'm like, dude, you can tell a guy's high on coke. Bullshit. So I had Rudy, the drummer, go into the bathroom and do, because saw Blackie Lawless walking to the bathroom. So Rudy says, dude, I got to go in there real quick. He goes, well, all right. And he goes, well, I'm just going to do a couple lines. You want to come in? And Blackie's like, sure. So he comes in, closes the door, they do a couple lines, come back out. That was it. As soon as we started doing it was done. So Mick, he didn't do anything. He was taking painkillers, but you couldn't tell. You could tell something was going on, but he wasn't really drinking, but he was acting really goofy. And Vince Neil, he's kind of a hard guy to read, drunk, sober, whatever. And I'm like, this is like a friggin' party. And, Blackie started to loosen up because he started doing a lot of blow, and he started drinking Michelob. For some reason, somebody brought a bunch of Michelob in. So there was cases being ordered. And there's, this liquor store down the street was just delivering shit. Cases of Miller, cases of friggin' Michelob, cases of Budweiser, cases of whatever. And, some of it was coming from Motley Crue, some of it was coming from us, some of it was coming from WASP. And then, people were dropping off, the little balloons for Tommy and Nikki. And, me and Tony went in and snorted a little bit of that. And I threw up all into it. And I'm like, wow. Oh my gosh. That stuff is horrible. I don't understand. And then I'm like, whoa. So, but I never, ever, So, okay, it just kept building. Okay, now we're partying, we're drinking. This is the fourth night that we were there. So we were there, we had booked 2 solid weeks. So we had another show coming up at the Troubadour. Oh no, we were going on a tour to Japan with Motorhead. So we had to get tight, But it wasn't happening. We were just way too much. It was too much partying because it's like WASP, Motley Crue, and us. And we knew them. It's like me and Tony, the bass player, and Trick or Treat, we knew Motley Crue. And we knew Blackie and Randy Piper, who wasn't in the band, So we're partying, and it was loosening up, and I said, the only thing that's missing is girls. And they're like, yeah, right, who's got the girls? And I look at Tony, and he's gay. I go, don't you know any girls? Like, you've got like 10 girls always walking with you. Why? Because they want coke. I'm like, oh. And they're trying to turn. I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to know what they're trying to do. Call them up. So he calls them up. So we got 5 girls. We got 5 girls. So there's one I knew. I'm like, hey, come here. And I'll just call her Cat. So Cat, come here. And we took off, and we were, and and then we go in and we try to play some songs, and sometimes we get through a song, and then that means another band would go in and try to play a song, and then Motley Crue would go in and try to play a song, and then we started requesting, like, hey, why don't you play friggin' Come On and Dance? They're like, wow, we don't, maybe. So they tried. It just depended on how wasted they were and how, it was great. So I actually went in and played bass for Nicky because he was too wasted, and we did Come On and Dance because Tommy could pretty much get through anything until he was ready to pass out, which was getting ready to happen, kind of. So the next night, it's like night 5, and Tommy comes in on his Harley, because Nicky and Vince and Tommy would usually drive their Harleys to the place, and Nick would just drive his Corvette or whatever. What else did he have? He had the Corvette and something else. And, yeah, so the funny thing is you're not supposed to be driving the bikes in, but, so Vince drives his in, through the lobby into the friggin' rehearsal studio. That's how big it was. Parked it in the middle, and he goes, I'm just gonna sit on this, drink some brews, and we'll go through the set. And Tommy's like, I'm bringing my bike in. So he brings his bike, and he comes in, he's like, bam, right into the drum set. Crashes into his drum set. He went flying over his handlebars. He's laying like on his back, and he's like, I crashed. And everybody's like, no shit. So everybody's trying to pull up the bike, and he's like, call my roadies, because there was only one roadie guy there for him, just in case. One guy for each guy. He's like, we need all the roadies. So he called like 2 or 3 guys, and they had to replace some because he messed the setup. Then they had to set everything up in the mics, da-da-da. So we're like, oh, well, tonight's blown. We're partying. More girls, more beer, more drugs. So more girls show up, and I'm like, I know where to go. So I snuck into Motley Crue's room, and we went upstairs to the balcony because not many people would go up there. I don't know why, but it's a big balcony with like 2 big couches and a refrigerator full of beer. And that was always, compliments of the rehearsal place. So I went in, I was with a girl. I don't know what her name was, but she was cute. Really cute. I think she had dark hair. Yeah, she had black hair, sticking up, blah, blah, all the Motley Crue look, which is cool. My hair, I have this all motleyed out. I weighed like 140-something pounds. So we're up there on the couch, drinking beer and, pouring beer and stuff. And it was really hot up there, so we decided to maybe take it not so hot. And, I feel weird. I'm 60 years old. I don't want to, I was up there banging this chick on a couch. I was. So, oh no, this just reminded me. Okay, so this just keeps going. It's going every night. It's worse. It's worse. It's worse. We're partying more. We're just doing, I'm trying to solo. Everybody's trying to see who can get the loudest. Of course, Mick's going to be louder than everybody. He had like 10 friggin' stacks. And they weren't all Marshall. They were like Soldanos. And actually he had some Van Halen amps. And early Van Halen has. And what else did he have? Something else, and Marshalls. And you know, sounded. He had just a really great sound. And then of course, Chris Holmes. All of his Marshalls are Eddie Van Halen's old Marshalls. I didn't know that until he was staying in my garage, and I'm like, man, these are the best sounding friggin' amps I've ever played. He goes, oh, those are Eddie's. I go, Eddie Van Halen? He goes, yeah. He gives me, like, after every tour, he's like, you need a couple stacks? Take them. So I take, like, 3 or 4 stacks. I'm like, what? Because, yeah, and then if I need money, I sell them, and I go back to Eddie, and I say, hey, you got any more amps? He's like, yeah, right there, because he had just tons. And they were all modded. You know, and I'm like, but, you know, they weren't the amp. Like, he had the amp that gave him that sound for the first album. That went nowhere. That's usually stayed in the friggin'... It went on the first 2 tours, and then he started to get worried about it, and then he was like, well, I don't need to bring it because I can get these amps to sound good enough, and people don't care. Anyway. So, it just kept going, kept getting bigger, more girls, more booze, more, and, you know, I just don't know what to tell you. You go into the WASP room, and, you know, Chris is got a girl bent over a friggin' guitar amp, and he's not playing guitar, and I don't, you know, she wasn't fixing the cabinet. And I'm trying to be nice, but trying to tell you guys how crazy it was, but it's kind of hard to without just saying it, huh? But I feel weird because I'm a freaking 60-year-old guy. And I try to go to church every Sunday. Okay, forgive me, Lord. So everybody was just banging chicks left and right. And it was like, how many girls could we do in a night? How much drugs could we do? How much alcohol could we? So by the second week, it was just ridiculous. You know, friggin' somebody, I don't know, I think it was Vince tried to do, you know, donuts in the lobby on his Harley, and he crashed that into 2 planters and busted them. And that's when the guy said, all right, I got to do something. So he called the manager for WASP, who's the manager for Iron Maiden. I still don't remember his name. Martin Birch is the producer. Whoever the manager is, he came flying over from England to tell WASP to stop it and start friggin' rehearsing, because you've got a friggin' tour to go on. And they were going to record something, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to WASP after the second album. I care less. I thought they sucked after the first album. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, it just got so crazy. If you can think it, we did it. I mean, you know, debauchery, I don't know. You know, I had like 2 girls in my room, in our band room, because it was cleared out and everybody was doing stuff and wherever. And I had these 2 chicks, and I'm like, well, let's get behind my... So I had my 2 Marshall stacks, and then the bass player had 2 stacks of bass Marshall cabinets on my side and 2 on his side. So I was we got behind those amps, and we just took our clothes off and, you know, drinking and pouring the beer, and that's what California Cooler. I don't know if anybody remembers California Coolers, but I love those. So this one girl was like, I love California Coolers. I go, do you really like them? She goes, yeah. I go, well, then how would you like to drink it? Or how would you like to, drink it off tap? She goes, oh yeah, how do you do that? I go, like this. And I poured it down so it would, whoop, and it, off my ding, and it's just stupid. It got ridiculous. And is anything you could think of you could do, because there was nothing but women and then these other 2 retarded bands that were, you know, just partying. And it wasn't like outdoing each other. It was just, it was there. We got it. We should just do it. And it got to the point where, you know, Doc had to come out and tell Motley Crue, all right, you guys are done. You're not even going to Europe. You're going to rehab. Because when he showed up, I remember I was drunk and pretty like, and he's like, so who are you? I said, Trick or Treat. He goes, it's not October. I said, yeah, very funny. Who are you? He goes, Doc. I go, oh, Doc McGee, huh? I go, there and there. He goes, I know where they're at. And the next thing they're doing is they're going to rehab. I'm like, oh, He goes, I would advise all of you guys to, you know, maybe look into that. And he brought in like big guys, and they handcuffed themselves to Motley Crue, except for Mick. Mick was just, I didn't know he was, you know, slamming a bunch of painkillers, but that's what he was doing. And then he'd drink a little bit, and he would be, and that would be it. And then, you know, there was girls, you know, girls would be, you know, Mick would have his share of 1 or 2 girls a day or whatever. But it was like ridiculous because I was going through like, you know, 10, 20 girls a day, a night. And I'm like, we gotta rehearse. But so by the time Motley Crue got thrown out and taken to rehab, so that's why they went to rehab, because they screwed up in their rehearsal, and he says, we're not sending these idiots to Europe because they're going to come back in a body bag. And they would have. They were out of control. And WASP was pretty out of, I mean, that Johnny Rod dude, he can do a lot of blow. A lot of blow. And he did. So he goes, so there's a girl there, and she's laying on her stomach, and he lines up a line of cocaine from her heel on down her leg, over her butt, all the way up to her shoulder. He goes, I'm going to do this whole line in one nostril. And we're like, go. He's like, he does. And then he switched nostrils. He had to. I knew he couldn't do it. And we're like, holy crap. And he goes, yeah, this stuff doesn't even affect me. Oh my gosh, I think I'm having a heart attack. And he jumps up and he runs over and he gets like 4 beers and he's like, he's just trying to drink them as fast as he can. I'm like, yeah, good going there, dum-dum. So I'm like, you know, I want some. So I went to Tony and I said, dude, give me some blow. Some blow. And I went in and found this girl and I said, hey, come on, I want to try some. Because, you know, just, you know, I've done it before, but hey, why not? I said, I just want to do something. I want to put, like, on your, where you sit. Come on, I'm an old man. So, you know, lay on your stomach, and I'm going to make a little thing of white stuff on each, and she goes, well, what about me? I go, well, what do you want to do? I mean, this is like, you know, do stuff you haven't done before. She's like, oh, well, I know what I want to do it off of. I'm like, of course you do. I go, okay, that's fine. So she did. Off my, you know, first had to, you know, be to the point where she could put it on there, and then, you know, and then we, you know, bam, and, you know, coke sex is crazy because you're numb and you last forever, and it's just insane. So we were basically, we were the first ones to show up, and we were the last ones to leave. Because we had to book an extra 3 nights. And we were hungover like as hell. But we went through the set over and over and over and over. And then we took off to Japan with Motorhead. And we did almost 2 weeks in Japan. Came back, and Mandy disappeared. He was gone. And that was the end of it. End of Trick or Treat, end of everything. And I'm like, oh my God, what an idiot. And then he shows up later with another band called World War III. His friggin', you know, hair is falling out, his extensions, so they're all hanging down one side, so he's trying to make it look like it's supposed to hang down one side to here. And he's trying to start this band, World War III, and he did. Chet Thompson and I don't know who else. They were all very good musicians. But I'm like, you dick. And they did. They were getting big. They got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And they opened up for EZO. I don't know if you guys remember that band from Japan. They were great. And then he got signed with Hollywood Records. And Hollywood Records said, all we want is you. We're going to dump the band. He's like, oh, yeah, but, you know, he doesn't care. All he needed was, well, how? And they just said, don't worry about it, because we already have a band for you. He goes, who? Jimmy Bain, Vinny Appice, and a guitar player named Tracy G. So the band was ready, and they'd already started writing songs. So they just put Mandy in there, and they were done. They recorded the album in less than a month, and went out, because, you know, what's his name did it? The Van Halen guy did the basic recording tracks and everything, and then, I don't know, I don't remember who mastered the first World War III. But, okay, and so, you know what? I feel embarrassed telling all the stories about that, because it is massive debauchery, massive craziness. You name it. I mean, pouring, you know, Jack Daniels down a girl's back and drinking it when it would, you know what I mean? You know, everything, anything you think of. And then they just were, it was nuts. It was great though. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So when, you know, time comes around, that was 87, 88, 89, I'm in, I got Fatal Attraction going, and we're selling out everywhere, and we're going on these Southwest tours where we go to Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, you know, Colorado, Texas, and come back. And it would take us a couple of months because we played a lot of friggin' clubs in every state. So we call it like the Southwest, you know, Circle of Fire, and we, you know, do that because it always seemed to come around the summer, and that's not fun traveling those states, but you know, that's what they wanted. So we did that. We came back. Motley Crue, ran into them in Nevada, and they said, "Hey, we need an opening act for like 3 shows coming up. You guys want to do it?" And we're like, "Yeah." And they, we had a manager by then, Goldwater and Associates. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was